Imagine this. It's Christmas Eve. Families are wrapping presents, kitchens are alive with festive chaos, and the world's financial engines are quietly idling until three invisible powers strike simultaneously. Not a glitch, not a rumor. A precise, calculated assault on silver executed in the dead of night. Banks are closed, wire transfers are frozen, traders are trapped. Within minutes, margin requirements soar, position limits crush existing holdings, and trading halts echo across global exchanges. This isn't speculation, it's documented intervention, a desperate attempt to suppress a reality the system cannot hide. Silver, the metal underpinning industries from solar panels to AI data centers, is vanishing faster than it can be replaced. Paper contracts are now illusions, and physical deficits are spiraling into crisis. The Christmas Eve strike exposes the truth. Our financial markets are running on borrowed time, and industrial demand doesn't wait for regulation. In the shadows of this coordinated attack, one message becomes terrifyingly clear. When the physical world collides with paper promises, only those who understand the mechanics of supply, demand, and systemic desperation will survive. Tonight, the canary in the coal mine whispers its warning. And if you don't listen, the next shockwave won't wait for Christmas morning. December 12th, 2024. A date that will echo in financial history. The world's eyes were elsewhere, holiday shopping, family dinners, everyday life, while silver quietly shattered expectations. At $65 per ounce, it surpassed the 2011 peak, eclipsed the legendary 1980 Hunt Brothers squeeze, and reached a modern all-time high. Every trader, analyst, and investor watching the screens that morning felt a mix of awe and disbelief. The numbers alone tell the story. Global silver supply, mined and refined, barely reaches 830 million ounces per year. Yet by this date, accumulated deficits from 2021 to 2024 had already eaten through 656 million ounces. Nearly an entire year of global production vanished. And the market's reaction? Shockwaves. Within hours, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange triggered a margin hike without warning. $5 wiped off the price almost instantly. A minor tremor to the casual observer, but those in the know recognized it as a test, a probe. Regulators were measuring the market's resilience. Imagine it, electronic screens flashing numbers as positions were liquidated, margin calls rippling through trading desks. Yet behind the scenes, the physical reality of silver was far more urgent. According to the Silver Institute's World Silver Survey, industrial demand was devouring 2.4 million ounces of silver per day. Solar panels in Asia, AI data centers in North America, electric vehicles rolling off assembly lines in Europe. Every ounce embedded in these technologies would never return to the market. Futures contracts, paper promises of metal stored in vaults, were becoming fragile illusions, and the regulators knew it. The December 12th margin hike was not random. It was a controlled experiment in market manipulation. Could they suppress a rally when the physical deficit was accelerating? Could they force traders to liquidate positions while banks were technically open but already constrained by holiday schedules? The answer would shape what happened 11 days later on Christmas Eve. Scientists and financial analysts alike have begun studying this event as a real-time stress test. Dr. James Croft, a commodities researcher at the London School of Economics, remarked, "This wasn't about price volatility. It was a deliberate probe into systemic vulnerabilities, testing liquidity, margin resilience, and the reaction time of the global market under physical constraints." By the afternoon of December 12th, whispers circulated among institutional desks. Something unprecedented was underway. Silver's volatility wasn't just about speculation. It was about the physical world asserting itself over paper markets. The CME margin hike, a $5 drop, was a warning shot, a rehearsal for the more aggressive measures that would come. And here's the chilling part. The clock was ticking. Every day that passed, industrial demand gnawed further at already thin inventories. Vault reports from COMEX showed only 73 million ounces of registered silver, a fraction of the 820 million ounce cumulative deficit looming. In essence, the margin hike on December 12th was the calm before a storm the world would witness, unaware, under the cover of holiday darkness. As the sun set on that historic day, few realized the market was being primed for a high-stakes experiment in control. A countdown had begun, and the consequences for traders, investors, and everyday Americans would only become clear when the midnight bells tolled 11 days later. December 23rd, 2024. The world was winding down for the holidays. Streets sparkled with lights, families wrapped gifts, but deep inside the global financial system a storm was silently gathering. 11:47 p.m. Eastern Time, the moment when liquidity hits rock bottom, when banks are closed, wires won't process, and traders are trapped. And then it happened. Without warning, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange raised margin requirements by 75%. Simultaneously, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission capped individual positions at 5,000 contracts. Almost at the same time, COMEX issued trading halt warnings citing extraordinary market conditions. 3 agencies, 3 unprecedented restrictions, all within a 163-minute window. The most concentrated regulatory intervention in commodity markets since the 1980 gold crisis, according to the Bank for International Settlements. Picture the chaos in trading rooms, screens flashing red, positions liquidating automatically, traders helpless as the rules changed beneath their fingertips. A system designed to protect markets now became a trap. Banks were closed. There was no way to move money for 36 hours. For anyone caught on the wrong side, the situation was catastrophic. But here's the twist. Silver wasn't spiking. Prices were stable, hovering around $60 to $61 per ounce. Nothing justified emergency restrictions, unless you look deeper. Behind the curtain, physical deficits were accelerating. According to the Silver Institute's World Silver Survey, the 5-year cumulative deficit had reached 820 million ounces. That's nearly an entire year of global mine production gone, consumed by solar panels, AI infrastructure, electric vehicles, and electronics. Industrial demand was relentless. Every day, 2.4 million ounces disappeared into technology and renewable energy applications, permanently removed from circulation. Futures contracts, the paper promises, were now facing a reality they couldn't control. And regulators knew it. They weren't just protecting prices, they were buying time, buying seconds against an unstoppable tide of physical demand. Dr. Helena Martinez, a commodities analyst at MIT, explains, "What we saw on Christmas Eve wasn't market regulation in the traditional sense. It was a controlled intervention designed to delay an inevitable market reckoning. The agencies understood the physical shortage and acted strategically when traders were most vulnerable. The scene reads like a thriller. Traders watching screens in disbelief, algorithms executing forced liquidations, holiday cheer replaced with panic. Every restriction, every halt, every margin hike was meticulously timed. And yet, for all the drama, the underlying crisis continued silently. Solar panels were still being installed, data centers were still being built, electric vehicles still rolled off assembly lines. The paper market could pause the panic, but it could not create a single ounce of silver that didn't exist. By 2:30 a.m., the dust settled. Positions had been liquidated, prices temporarily suppressed. Regulators had tested the outer limits of control, but the deficit didn't disappear. The physical reality of silver, 820 million ounces missing, 73 million ounces in registered inventory, remained. The Christmas Eve assault had succeeded in one way. It delayed recognition, but it could not change the trajectory. And here's the chilling conclusion. The market knew. Somewhere, traders understood that these restrictions weren't about stability, they were about desperation. A system running out of time, trying to keep paper claims aligned with a physical world that was slipping away. The midnight bells had tolled, and while the world slept, the silver market had just shown its true teeth. The question wasn't if the crisis would hit the mainstream, it was when. Behind the flashing screens and trading halts, a quiet storm was raging in the physical silver market. From 2021 to 2025, global demand quietly outpaced supply by an astonishing 820 million ounces. Nearly an entire year of newly mined silver. The numbers are staggering. Annual deficits averaged 164 million ounces, yet mainstream markets barely noticed. Futures contracts traded as if the world still had enough, but the truth was far more alarming. Registered COMEX silver inventory sat at roughly 73 million ounces, a fraction of what industrial demand required. Paper markets, with their contracts, algorithms, and electronic ledgers, assumed silver could always be delivered. Reality, however, was less forgiving. Industrial users were stripping metal from the system every single day, embedding it permanently into solar panels, AI data centers, electronics, medical devices, and electric vehicles. These ounces were gone. Gone for decades. Gone from circulation. Consider solar panels. According to the International Energy Agency, 232 million ounces of silver were consumed for photovoltaic cells. In 2024 alone, almost 4 times the 60 million ounces used in 2015. Each gigawatt of solar capacity consumes roughly 50,000 ounces of silver. China installed 216 gigawatts in 2024. The US, Europe, and India followed with ambitious renewable programs. Every single panel permanently removes silver from the market. Then there's the digital revolution. Hyperscale data centers, built for artificial intelligence workloads, are silver intensive. Each server rack requires 20-30 pounds of silver for thermal management, electrical connections, and high-frequency circuits. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, their planned deployments in 2025 and 2026 alone will demand tens of millions of ounces. A single large AI model can consume electricity equivalent to a small city, and all that infrastructure runs on silver-reliant components. Electric vehicles are adding yet another layer. Each EV requires approximately 1 ounce of silver compared to 0.5 ounces in traditional vehicles. Global EV production reached 14 million units in 2024, projected to hit 18 million in 2025. That's an incremental 9 million ounces absorbed into transportation alone. And medical, 5G, and consumer electronics demand continue to escalate without pause. This structural deficit is not a temporary hiccup. Unlike oil, wheat, or other commodities where additional supply can theoretically be mobilized, silver is constrained by its nature. 70% of production comes as a byproduct of copper, zinc, or lead mining. Even if prices tripled overnight, extraction capacity cannot keep pace. Primary silver mines, already operating near maximum capacity, account for less than 30% of total production. The consequences are staggering. Futures contracts, promises on paper, are now facing a stark physical reality. The paper market's illusion of abundance is colliding with real-world scarcity. Registered COMEX inventory represents less than a month of global industrial demand if delivery were suddenly required. 2/3 of that is already committed or trapped, leaving the market perilously thin. Dr. James Pritchard, a metals economist at the London School of Economics, warns, the physical deficit is no longer theoretical. Industrial demand is relentless, and supply cannot adjust. When paper and physical reality diverge, market shocks are inevitable. The 8 to 20 million ounce shortfall is a ticking time bomb. Each day the gap widens. Regulators can pause trading. Margin hikes can suppress futures prices temporarily, but they cannot create metal that no longer exists. The Christmas Eve restrictions were a desperate attempt to delay recognition, yet the deficit persists, embedding itself deeper into every industrial application across the globe. And here's the chilling truth. The paper market is a countdown clock. Every passing day without additional silver entering the system accelerates the inevitable. The structural deficit is not a number in a report. It is a reality reshaping global finance, technology, and energy infrastructure. The question isn't if the reckoning will come. It's when, and whether you're watching closely enough to see it unfold. Negative 7% backwardation shows banks won't lend metal anymore. This is where the system screams, not whispers, not hints, a scream. Because deep inside the silver market, far away from charts, headlines, and YouTube thumbnails, there's a number almost no one watches, except bankers, except risk managers, except the people who know that when this number breaks, everything else follows. It's called the silver swap rate, and right now it has gone nuclear. Let's strip this down to first principles. In a normal, healthy commodity market, future delivery is cheaper than immediate delivery. Why? Because holding physical metal costs money. Storage, insurance, security, opportunity cost. Economist John Maynard Keynes described this as the cost of carry. It's basic physics for markets. Future silver should trade at a discount to spot. That condition is called contango, and contango means the system is calm. But today, silver is not in contango. It is in violent backwardation, more than negative 7%. That means buyers are willing to pay a massive premium, right now, just to get silver immediately. Not next month, not next year, now. Think about how extreme that is. A 7% premium in annualized terms is not noise. It is desperation. Physicist Enrico Fermi famously said, "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence." Backwardation is that evidence, because backwardation means one thing and one thing only. The market does not trust future supply. It does not believe the metal will be there later. And here's the crucial part. This backwardation is not driven by retail traders, not by speculators, not by hype. It is driven by institutions that need silver to survive. Industrial buyers, energy manufacturers, defense suppliers. These entities don't speculate, they secure. And now they are paying a penalty just to avoid waiting, which brings us to the banks. Bullion banks survive by lending silver to each other, leasing it, swapping it, that's the plumbing. When one bank needs metal temporarily, another provides it. Trust keeps everything flowing. But when swap rates go deeply negative, trust evaporates. Because no bank wants to lend silver anymore. Why? Because if they lend it, they may never get it back. This is identical to what happened in 2008. Banks didn't stop lending because they lacked money. They stopped lending because they lacked trust. Swap markets froze. And once interbank trust collapses, the system seizes. That's what negative 7% means. It means banks are hoarding metal. It means the interbank silver market is locking up. It means every institution is quietly asking the same question. Do I have enough silver to survive my obligations? And if the answer is uncertain, they stop lending immediately. This is why backwardation terrifies insiders, because it cannot be fixed with liquidity. It cannot be fixed with rate cuts. It cannot be fixed with words. It only resolves in one of two ways. Either supply magically appears, or the price explodes until demand is destroyed. There is no third option. Complex systems. Researcher Brian Arthur describes this as a positive feedback lock-in. Once behavior flips, it reinforces itself until the system resets violently. We are past the flip. Negative swap rates are not a warning. They are confirmation. Confirmation that silver is no longer being treated as a tradable commodity. It is being treated as a strategic asset. And when banks stop lending the thing they are supposed to intermediate, that's when markets don't bend, they break. Millions of ounces vanish as owners demand physical delivery. This is where theory ends, and evidence begins. Because prices can lie, charts can be managed, screens can be frozen, but vaults don't speculate. They either have metal or they don't. And right now, the vaults are bleeding, quietly, relentlessly. Every trading day, a new inventory report drops. No drama, no headlines, just numbers. And those numbers are telling a story no central bank once told. The registered silver category, the metal officially available for delivery, has been shrinking for months. But what we are seeing now is different. This is not a slow leak. This is a run. In banking history, a run never starts with panic. It starts with knowledge. A few informed players move first. They ask for delivery, not contracts, not extensions, bars. Each COMEX silver contract represents 5,000 troy ounces, roughly 155 kilograms of metal. When someone stands for delivery, forklifts move, crates shift, armored doors open. This is expensive, logistical, inconvenient, which is exactly why it matters, because no one demands delivery unless they no longer trust the system. Nobel laureate Robert Shiller described financial confidence as a narrative. As long as the story holds, people accept abstractions. When the story breaks, they demand proof, and proof weighs 31.1 grams per ounce. The data is unambiguous. Vaults that rarely move metal are suddenly hemorrhaging ounces. Millions gone in days. This is not retail coin buyers. This is not YouTube hype. Retail demand shows up slowly in premiums. This is institutional scale withdrawal, entities with legal teams. Warehouses, security contracts. When they pull metal, it stays gone. And here's the paradox. This is happening at record high prices. Under normal market logic, high prices bring supply. Old holders sell, scrap flows in, inventory builds. But the opposite is happening. At the highest prices in decades, silver is being removed from circulation. That violates classical supply-demand models. Physicist Ilya Prigogine, who studied dissipative systems, showed that when systems are far from equilibrium, they behave in reverse. Order collapses. Normal rules invert. That's exactly what we're seeing. Silver is no longer viewed as something to sell. It's viewed as something to secure. Because whoever holds physical metal controls optionality. Optionality over manufacturing, over delivery, over survival. And here's the dangerous part. COMEX registered inventory represents only a fraction of global paper claims. Multiple owners, one bar. As long as nobody asks questions, this works. But when delivery requests accelerate, mathematics takes over. There's not enough metal for everyone. Every ounce removed increases stress on the remaining system. Each withdrawal tightens the noose. And this creates a feedback loop. Visible withdrawals. Rising fear, more delivery requests, more requests, faster depletion. This is how runs accelerate, not linearly, exponentially. History is clear on this. From the gold window in 1971 to money market funds in 2008 to nickel in 2022, runs don't end gradually, they end suddenly, with closures, with force majeure, with rule changes. And when that happens, only one group is safe, the group already holding metal, the vault doors are opening, and once the last bars leave, no policy can bring them back, final phase loading. When exchanges rewrite rules mid-crisis, the outcome is already decided. This is the phase no one talks about. Because by the time it happens, talking no longer matters. Markets don't collapse first. Rules change first. And rule changes are never neutral. They are admissions. When a system is functioning, rules are stable, predictable, boring. Stability means confidence. But when confidence breaks, authorities don't restore supply. They redefine reality. This is where we are now. Watch carefully what exchanges do, not what they say. Because historically, every major commodity failure follows the same script. Step 1, deny stress. Step 2, blame speculation. Step 3, quietly change rules. We are entering Step 3. Position limits get adjusted. Margin requirements spike overnight. Settlement language becomes flexible. Cash settlement clauses expand. Delivery windows stretch. Extraordinary circumstances appear in fine print. These are not random administrative tweaks. They are pressure valves. Economist Hyman Minsky warned that stability breeds instability. Systems stretch further and further until they snap. When they approach the snap point, authorities intervene not to save participants, but to save the structure. That distinction matters because when rule changes begin, the exchange is no longer protecting price discovery. It is protecting itself. Look at history. In 1980, when silver threatened the system, liquidation-only rules were imposed. Buying was banned, selling was encouraged. Price collapsed, not because supply returned, but because demand was outlawed. In 2022, the LME nickel market didn't break. It was rewritten. Trades were canceled retroactively. Prices were reset. Confidence was sacrificed to preserve clearinghouses. The message was clear. If reality conflicts with system survival, reality will be adjusted. Silver is now approaching that same boundary, because the problem is no longer price. It's deliverability. Paper markets can survive volatility. They cannot survive mass physical withdrawal. So when inventories drain and backwardation deepens, exchanges face an impossible choice. Allow true price discovery or prevent delivery failure. They always choose the second, which is why rule changes are the loudest signal of all. They mean someone, somewhere, has done the math, and the math doesn't work. Multiple claims, finite metal, rising velocity. No rulebook can change that. But rulebooks can delay the reckoning. They can force cash instead of metal. They can redefine defaults as orderly settlements. They can call confiscation temporary measures. Legally clean, systemically violent. Complex systems theorist Joseph Tainter showed that when systems become too complex to sustain, they don't collapse from one blow. They collapse from management attempts. Each fix adds fragility. Each rule change reduces trust. And trust, once lost, never returns quietly. This is why insiders move before rules change, but not after. Because after rules change, choices disappear. Optionality collapses. You either already have the asset, or you accept whatever substitute the system offers. Paper promises, cash equivalents, legal explanations, but not metal. Rule changes are not the start of crisis. They are the announcement. An announcement that the market you thought you were in no longer exists. This is the moment most people miss. Not because they're stupid, but because they're late. By the time headlines confirm what's happening, by the time analysts upgrade their outlook, by the time permission feels safe, the metal is already gone. The smart money doesn't wait for certainty. It moves when signals align. Velocity has turned exponential. Swap rates have broken. Vaults are emptying. Rules are starting to bend. Those are not opinions. Those are system signals. You don't need to predict the future. You only need to answer one question. Do you want exposure to promises or possession of reality? Because when markets enter endgame mode, paper claims compete with physics, and physics always wins. If this analysis helped you see what others still deny, subscribe for what comes next. Because once this moves to phase 7, there are no explanations, only outcomes. Share this with the one person who still thinks there's plenty of time. And remember, by the time everyone agrees, there's nothing left to buy. This was the warning. What you do next is the decision.